We are live and recording, so good afternoon, everybody. It's Alex here once again from the Festival of Enterprise. Hope you're all doing well today, wherever you are. Let us know, post up in the chat function there. Let me know whereabouts in the UK you're watching from. Yesterday was like the last day of the apocalypse down here in Poole in Dorset, with waves higher than my head, but today the sun is out, it's a beautiful day. I'm joined by Esther Greenwood, business advisor from the City Business Library. And I believe, Esther, you told me you're in Croydon at the moment. Is that right?
I am, yes, I am.
Excellent. Oh, thank you for joining me today for this webinar. We're going to be talking how to grow your business with market research, something that has got to be relevant for every single person who has joined us during the last 4 months on these webinars, I'd say, and especially alongside those who would have been with us at Olympia back in April and the NEC this October. And, you know, fingers crossed, after Boris's announcement, 10 days ago now, we will get back to live events very soon. So just to frame this webinar for you, give you a little bit more information. You've obviously all read it and signed up to the webinar as well. And welcome those of you who have joined us on the Crowdcast platform today. We've got Barry from Greenhouse Graphics. We've got Maggie Shaw from Arundel Micro-Publisher in Cheshire checking in. Jane from Sweet Revolution, who makes super blend lattes for retail and food service. Heather from sunny Shropshire. We've got Chris from Elfie Drinks, growing up drinks from the countryside. And we've got Simon who says hello, and we've got Peter Woolsey as well. So loads of people jumping in today, which is awesome. Little bit of housekeeping to tell you before I just frame the webinar for you is where you are typing in now, everybody. That's the best place to ask Esther a question or myself. Use the chat box there. June's just come in from GNC Technology. Welcome, June, as well. Whereabouts are you? Yeah, all questions in there, and then I can position them to Esther towards the end of today's webinar. There's also going to be people watching live on Facebook, on Twitter, and YouTube. So again, I will check those platforms for questions whilst Esther is taking us through the presentation. Welcome, Louise, who's based between Cheshire and Devon. That sounds like a nice combination to me. Okay, so how to grow your business with market research. So the City Business Library session that this is today is going to look at how research can help you make informed decisions about your business, empowering you to take your business to the next level. Now, it's important to keep researching, looking for new markets throughout the time that you're trading, not just when starting out. And I know myself, and I'm sure many of you have been doing just that during the last 3 or 4 months during lockdown as well. Certainly a number of the CEOs and founders that I've hosted on here have used that time to do that. Now, Esther's going to show us the tools to understand what's happening in our own market sectors and think about our suppliers and customers' markets. Alongside understanding your market, Esther's going to explain how it's important to understand the financial health of your suppliers, customers, and competitors, and is going to show us resources that can help us. So Esther is a business advisor who's supported businesses across London for 15 years now. She works at the City Business Library, which has a wealth of market research, as you'd expect, company data, and practical information about running and expanding your business. And she is, I know, looking forward to sharing this information with us.
Indeed.
So, Lisa, thank you for joining us as well at Inside Out Contracts in Greenwich. And yeah, I think we're good to go now. So, Esther, whenever you're ready, I will hand over the controls to you. I'm going to knock out my video so that everybody's focus is just on Esther, and I'll be monitoring any questions in the chat box. So without further ado, Esther, I will let you take the presentation away, and I'll be here the whole time.
Okay, thank you very much, Alex, and thank you for such a nice introduction, and welcome to this webinar. So as Alex mentioned, I work at the City Business Library, and our aim is to support anyone who is starting, running and growing their business, and researching your market and understanding where the market for your business, and understanding other companies that are acting within your sector, whether they be your suppliers or your competitors or your customers. That's crucial really to building your company and going forward. So why research your market? Well, you don't want to crash and burn. That's the main thing. You wouldn't think about going snowboarding without having taken some lessons. So researching your market, it's the same. It's about understanding what is going on with your customers, and you might be in both a business to business or a business to consumer market. Market research will help you to discover any new opportunities that might be around. It will enable you to innovate and diversify. And even if you're working for a charity or community interest company, you will still need to make money to invest. So this isn't just aimed at for-profit companies, it's also aimed at the non-profit sector as well. And researching your market is something that should be done continually while you're trading, and not just when you're starting out. Researching customers will help you to understand the current trends, but at best you'll be standing still. What you really need to do is to research the market and to see what opportunities are out there and how you can take your business forward. And this will help you to innovate and to offer new products and services. It's also important to understand your suppliers and what's going on in their industry, so you can mitigate any impact that changes in their industry might have on you. In order to help you do this, as well as using market research, you can also see the financial returns of any UK company or limited liability partnership, because they have to make returns every year to Companies House, so you can go in and have a look at that data too. Looking at the market will also help you understand what challenges might lie ahead and help you to think about how you innovate. And finally, if you're going to seek funding to expand your business, your lender will want to see that you have a clear target customer segment and that you're operating in an expanding market. So some of you will be operating in the business-to-business sector, and understanding your customers' market will enable you to adapt to any changes that they might be facing. You might be a location-based business. For example, you might be supplying food or fish to local restaurants and markets, so you're very much acting in one area. But company databases will enable you to search for or target businesses in a particular geographic area, and as well you'll be able to check out their finances, as I mentioned earlier. The other thing is, some people may not operate just in one local area, but may offer a service across the country through online sales. So obviously it's important to keep your website up to date and ensure that people can contact you. Something else that might happen with your B2B customers is they might ask you if they can pay on invoice rather than paying when you deliver the goods or services. And you might want to decide whether or not extending credit is something that you wish to do. But as I say, you can check the financials of a limited company, but also on some databases, you can also get a credit score rating for individual companies, and that might inform you as to whether or not you're going to ask for payment on delivery, or whether you'll be willing to give them an invoice and wait for payment. Others of you might be in the direct business to consumer market, and for this you'll need to make sure that you've got the right target. You're aiming your product at the right target market. So you'll need to understand the demographics and income data of the people that you're targeting. If you're running a location-based business, for example, say a craft ale pub like the one up the road from where I live, then you'll need to make sure that that the people living local to you are the right demographic in terms of income and age. Whereas if you're trading nationally, you'll be wanting to know about the population in general across the UK. And The NOMIS website takes data from the National Office of Statistics and makes that available, and that's a very good source of general statistics on the population of the UK in general. It covers demographics, it covers income, it covers population density as well. So the other thing is you might be acting on a very niche market, and there you really do need to know that you've got the right demographic to support you. Hopefully in the past few months you'll have gained a lot of new customers, and you'll obviously want to understand their market to keep these new customers. And you will doubtless have had to diversify really and innovate in order to remain in business. If however you're entering a new market, then the market research will look at any barriers that there might be to entry into a particular market, and any profitability and it will give 5-year forecasts for profitability in the particular sector. And company information databases will also enable you to search for businesses by sector and location. So you can use these to build a target list for perhaps marketing too. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're looking to access funding to any new market, your funder will want to make sure that you've got a clear target market and that you're acting in a growing sector. It's also important to understand what's going on in your suppliers' industry. Are their supply lines being affected? Can they continue to supply you? And what happens if they increase their prices? Would you be able to absorb those price increases, or might you have to pass them on to your own customers? So looking at your suppliers and understanding what's going on in their industry will help you as well. And all the market research reports, they have supply chains in them, and we have separate supply chain research as well. It might be possible that you'll need to find new suppliers, and the company data will enable you to find a list of people who might supply you with the goods or services that you need for your industry. Here in the UK, there might be some people joining us from overseas, so I'll just explain that I've got a pocket of Marmite up on this slide. Marmite is a yeast extract, and you spread it on toast or on bread. You can have it in sandwiches, and as it says on the bottle of Marmite here, it says that it's made from yeast extract, and this yeast extract is a byproduct of the beer brewing industry. So recently, obviously, all the restaurants and pubs and bars and clubs have been closed, so the demand for beer dropped, and that meant that less beer was being produced. Therefore, there was less yeast extract, which is the byproduct, being produced to be made into Marmite. So it had an effect on the production of Marmite. So the makers of Marmite, instead of producing jars in different sizes and producing Marmite in plastic bottles, only produced it in one size jar of 250 grams. It wasn't possible to buy it in any other size jar. So this is an example of how the supply chain has affected one particular industry, in this case, the production of Marmite. Another thing to consider when you're entering a new market is how crowded the marketplace might be and how many competitors there might be in the market. Sometimes you'll find that markets are dominated by one or two businesses. For example, 2/3 of all the cosmetics that are sold in this country are made by 4 companies. They're made by Coty, Estée Lauder, L'Oreal and Boots. And they account for 2/3 of all the cosmetics that are sold here in the UK. Whereas if you compare that to the architecture business, architecture practices in the UK, over 90% of them are small or micro businesses that employ 10 or fewer people. So you can see how the market is distributed between big and smaller businesses. Again, you can use company databases to research your competitors. You can see how well they're doing, you can see their credit score rating, and you can see details of any county court judgments that are outstanding against them, because they have to be registered at Companies House too. So there's quite a lot of data you can find out about any of your competitors. Finally, there are going to be some new kids on the block who've sprung up over the past few months. Some of your old competitors might have disappeared, but you really need to keep an eye on who are the new kids on the block, who are your up and coming competitors. And the Companies House data will help you to do that, because you can search by the different industries. So you can look at different industries, different companies that have registered in different industries. Another great way, of course, to expand your business is thinking about trading overseas, and this offers great opportunities, but it does require a lot of thought and planning. Using market research will help you to understand the demand for your product or service, and will also help you think about how you might price it right to make it an accessible product or service in a particular overseas market. Another thing that's important to consider are the social and political dynamics of what's going on in a particular country, and to understand any regulatory issues that you might encounter. Market research databases also give an overview of different countries, so you can use the data and which give the overview of countries as well as the markets in a particular country. Last year, we held an event at the library about doing business in Hong Kong and China. And we had a speaker who produces sparkling white wine. He's based down in Sussex. And he's been very successful in exporting his wine over to Hong Kong. He had, however, previously worked and lived in Hong Kong for about 8 or 10 years. So he had a very good understanding of the business and social cultures in Hong Kong. Conversely, we've had people who've come into the library and said, oh, I'd like to look at the market for my particular product or service in Dubai or Egypt, because I've been there on holiday. But it's great that somebody's already visited the country, but you have to think about or compare the experience of being somewhere on holiday for 2 weeks to what it's like to actually living, working and doing business in a country. The experience you might have of Egypt by spending 2 weeks in a resort in Sharm el-Sheikh, which very much caters to the Western tourist, is going to be very different to the lived experience of a resident of Cairo. So if you're thinking of trading overseas, it's not just about the experience you might have of when you go to a country on holiday. Please bear that in mind, because the two experiences of holiday and doing business are very different. The Department of International Trade and Chambers of Commerce are often good sources of information, and they can help with the paperwork on exporting. The Exporting is Great website, which is part of the gov.uk website, gives very top-level overviews of different countries and business sectors where you might see opportunities for your own particular business. But the published market research will enable you to investigate the markets in individual countries in much more depth. So market research and company data will also help you think about how you might prepare for possibly the more challenging times that we've got coming ahead. We don't yet know what the economic impact will be of COVID, or we don't understand it fully, but it is going to lead to some downturns, and those are things that we're going to have to face. To be prepared, well, you can think about things about reducing your margins or your overheads. You can think also about any processes within your business that you might be able to outsource, either to make your business more efficient or to make better use of your own time. If you provide a luxury service or product, then you might have to consider whether or not there would be the demand for it going forward, or whether you might consider producing a more cost-effective version of your business, of your product or service. And also think about the price which enables you to maximize your profit. Earlier in June, Chris Croft ran an excellent webinar on this website on finding the optimum selling price. And I highly recommend you go and look at that if you get the chance, just to see what he has to say about pitching the price of your product or service. The other thing as well, when we're thinking about challenging times, is to look at your supply chain, as we looked at earlier, and see what challenges you could face due to the impacts on your supply chain. And researching the market will help you to keep abreast of current trends and what's going on. This is especially crucial in markets that move fast, like fast fashion. But it's also important to watch for cultural changes. So perhaps if your product contains an animal derivative, you might think about how you might change that to produce a vegetarian or vegan alternative. If your product uses palm oil, is the palm oil from a sustainable source? So it's thinking about cultural changes and trends, as well as fashion changes and trends. And finally, be prepared to pivot. We've seen when the lockdown first came in, we saw a lot of food wholesale suppliers who would normally have been selling to restaurants and catering establishments. They had to pivot and change, and they started to and they changed and they sold directly to consumers and were delivering boxes of fruit and veg direct to consumers. My dad celebrated his birthday during this time of lockdown, and we arranged for a cafe that normally serves afternoon tea to be. They obviously couldn't open, so we arranged for them to deliver afternoon tea to my mum and dad, so that he could have that to celebrate his birthday. But the cafe had pivoted; it couldn't open, so it was taking the afternoon tea direct to its clientele. People of my parents' age would, of course, be the ideal customers for a cafe that specialised in afternoon tea. I hope that it's now managed to reopen and is back up and running. So where might you start? Well, at City Business Library, we obviously have a wealth of market research and company data. Market research covers both the UK and overseas markets, looking at both the B2B and B2C segments. The data includes market segmentation. It has SWOT analyses, so that's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats in particular markets. It looks at supply chains, and it will give 5-year growth and financial forecasts for the next 5 years. So it's a really good job, and these research reports are always being continually updated, so they're taking into account what is going on at the moment. The other thing to use, and you may well subscribe to these, are magazines that cover the trade press. Obviously, you can get them either as printed or electronic magazines. And trade press is often a very good source of new developments. For example, the blockchain technology is usually associated at the moment with the financial industry, but the Grocer magazine has recently been publishing articles about how blockchain technology is being used in the food industry. So very much how innovation is taking place. That's often covered in the trade press. As well as market research, our databases also have give overviews of countries and cities worldwide, so you can look at the demographic and economic data. They also use a PESTLE model, which covers the political, economic, social, technological, legal and environmental aspects of countries. So you can look at the regulations that you might face when you're seeking to trade overseas. And we also have company data for UK companies, and it's drawn directly from Companies House. as I said earlier, you can either search for an individual company and you can see the last 20 years financial details, you can get a credit score rating, you can get contact details and things like this, and you can view any county court judgments, or you can use the database for getting a list of targeted companies for targeted marketing to those particular companies, or you might use it to source new supplies for your own business. And that will download in an Excel file, that data. We also have a lot of practical information on growing your business. That will include exporting as well. We have a database called Cobra that's especially useful for that. And also for exporting, as I mentioned earlier, the Department for International Trade and local chambers of commerce, they also offer a lot of help and information. Finally, we also run our free webinars on our website, through our website. And these are some that we've got coming up on market research and company data, where we'll be looking in more depth at some of our resources. And we also have another webinar looking at how to research exporting and importing, and that will be coming up in September. Finally, here are our contact details, so please contact us either through our website or by email. Some of our data is available remotely free of charge, but we also have a subscription service that will provide more information to you remotely and for a small fee every year. Although the building isn't open at the moment, we're all working Monday to Friday, and your emails will be answered usually that day, sometimes the next working day. But please contact us to explore anything further, and we'll love to hear from you. Thank you very much. Back to you, Alex. Thank you.
Thanks, Esther. Appreciated, very much appreciated indeed. So let me downsize that. I've got a few questions for you that have come in. There we go. So Paul says, is City Business Library and the British Library one and the same? No.
No, we're not.
I'll let you say.
No, but we do get on well with our colleagues at the British Library, but we're not the same. We're not the same institution. So the British Library is based in St Pancras, the St Pancras station. We're actually in the heart of the city, but we have a lot of data that can be offered remotely, and it's obviously much easier for people to access data remotely than to have to go into a physical building.
Yeah, indeed. So there you go. And that probably answers the next question. Can you access City Business Library online?
Yes. Yes, definitely. Please get in contact with us and sign up for a membership. Yeah.
So that's literally all the time. You said you can. So if you got and June is it a free resource or a subscription, and you put on there that it's annual membership of £189, which again, divide that up over the course of a year, and it's very reasonable indeed.
There is some data available free of charge, remotely free of charge as well. So one of the big databases is called Cobra. It's a very practical database about how to run your business. So writing a business plan, filling in a VAT return, not terribly exciting, but stuff you need to know. And
stuff you need to do. Yeah.
Absolutely, you need to do. And it's written in normal English, not funny, fuddy-duddy business English. It's written in normal everyday English, so it's a great product to be able to access, and you can access that free of charge remotely.
Great. And Barry says, does the £189 fee include receiving data and contacts from UK companies?
Yes, it does. The database is called FAME, as it includes remote access. The fee, the subscription membership, it includes access to FAME, which lists all companies that are registered with Companies House. So there'll be limited companies and limited liability partnerships, and you can access that data. And it also includes all companies that are registered with the Republic of Ireland equivalent body, so you can access their details too. And the subscription membership also covers two databases called MarketLine and IBIS World. They're both market research databases international market research databases. And MarketLine also has a wealth of statistical data and provides overviews of particular countries. The PESEL reports I spoke about earlier, for example, and information about different cities, such as Kolkata in India. Plenty of information.
Great. And let me have a quick look at a couple of the other questions. June says, will they give access to different marketing laws in countries, e.g. can the spam?
Different access to different marketing
laws in countries. Not sure what she means.
Does that refer to GDPR, for example?
It might. There's a question from someone else. And how does this work with GDPR? From right at the start of the presentation.
Yes, that's a very good question. So FAME database, it has both company emails. So for example,
right.
ABC, a generic email, and it has named emails as well. But you need to be cautious about using named emails. That may not. There seems to be a difference of opinion. Some people would argue that you can use it in a named email for legitimate business interest. Other people say, no, you shouldn't. You should just use, for marketing, you should just use the generic email address. That is one that I would advise people to seek further advice on. The Information Commissioner's Office has quite a lot of information about marketing up on their website. It's got quite a good 4-page précis about GDPR and how you can use it for marketing.
Okay, thank you for that one. Let's have a quick look. What else? Yeah, June says she's launching a new course, so I was looking forward to this webinar. Glad to hear it. Hope that goes well for you. And that was the question, with regards to marketing laws. And some quick look. Yeah, you mentioned. I noticed you mentioned my. Was that the webinar you saw with Chris Croft? I posted the link up for everybody there.
Oh, good. I definitely recommend that.
Yeah, it's a good one. He's literally. I'll tell you this. He's my neighbour, just in case everyone thinks, what do you mean? He's literally just walked past the front of my house walking his dog. So Chris is amazing. He's had something insane like 70,000 students take his courses. He's got courses on Udemy, and it covers a whole variety of things from project management through to that one, the optimum selling price. And that was a really popular one, and it just I just thought it's super simple how he broke it down and showed how easy it was to tweak your prices and play around with it and see the differentials in the numbers. So
yes,
that was a good one to flag up. Thank you for that. Let's have a look through. If I want to market to companies in the US, I have to observe the can the spam laws, and France is very strict too. Do you have a resource showing the various laws?
No, I'm afraid we don't have any legal resources like that would show you that. I'm sorry, we don't have that.
Okay.
There might be something that might have to be looking on Google. I'm afraid some things it is just a Google search.
Yeah, have a look there, June. The obvious fail safe. Have a look at that. He says France is very strict too. And let's have a quick look. Chris says, to follow up on Jude's question, there are different regulations in different countries for promotions, e.g. a free gift on pack is not available everywhere. What resource would you use for this information?
Sorry, information on what?
I think again, different regulations for different countries when it comes to marketing promotion.
Well, any European country is going to be covered by GDPR as well. So you would have to look at that kind of legislation. Otherwise, you would have to look at the legislation for the individual countries. And I'm afraid I don't have anything off the top of my head that would immediately answer that.
That's fine. Any other questions, everybody? Thank you for your questions so far. Appreciate those, Chris, June. Department of Trade and Industry can help with some of this. Thank you, June. Thank you for posting that up there. And it is, Esther, isn't it? Just been talking about this on a previous call. It is a tricky time because I saw something which I thought was an amazing statistic. I interviewed a chap called Oliver Cookson for my podcast, which is called Screw It, Just Do It. And Oliver Cookson founded a company called My Protein with £500 and sold it for 58 million 7 years later, back in 2011. And he had posted up saying that during lockdown, and I assumed he meant in the UK, he said during lockdown, 200,000 businesses had been started. And I think he only posted that up 10 years ago, something like that. And he said the hotspots were Manchester and Liverpool, which you assume by default, just by numbers game, that London would have the most new businesses, during lockdown. But I thought that was a pretty unbelievable statistic, that despite all the doom and gloom there's been, people being furloughed, people losing their jobs, lack of demand with certain products. Obviously, people couldn't get to shops to actually purchase things unless they were online. That's a pretty impressive statistic, don't you think, that those many people are still being, doing a lot of research online, clearly at home as well, and have started businesses?
We've spoken to a number of customers who, as you say, are on furlough at the moment, or might unfortunately have lost their jobs, and they're really interested. They're seeing self-employment, whether it be starting multi-million-pound businesses or just working perhaps as a web designer or something that just by themselves. The number of people that we've been seeing and helping with their business planning in terms of starting their own business over the past few months has been phenomenal. And we're really excited to see that, to see entrepreneurship really taking off and people being inventive. People have had the phrase necessity is the mother of invention is so right. And this time is really offering people the opportunity to do something they've always had in the back of their mind, but now this is forcing them to do it in the same way we've always wanted to run webinars through at the library, but we've never had the opportunity and the time to do it. This has forced our hand to do it, and we're really enjoying it, actually. So it's a great way to communicate with people and to communicate wider. I should say that our resources are available to anyone who lives in the UK, who has a UK address. You don't have to be based in London at all. That's where our physical building is, but these resources are available to anyone across the UK. And research that goes into them, it is proper research. It's not just a quick search on Google. This stuff you won't find on Google. This data we obviously pay to access it and then to make it available to other people, but it is properly researched. It's not just sort of somebody sticking their finger in the air and coming up with a number. No,
it's great to hear, and clearly valuable. Another example, a friend of mine started a podcast which was for cabin crew, airline cabin crew, and it's taken on a life of its own. It started this Facebook group literally 6-7 weeks ago, and it's gone from like 3 people to 3,000 people in 6 or 7 weeks because the airline industry is obviously taken a huge hit. Lots of people are losing their jobs, having been furloughed, and it's amazing. We did a poll in the group, and I just thought it naturally would be people simply wanting to go and find another job, and it's not. 40% of people in that group want to start their own business, and we've already had testimonials come through from people literally in the last 6 weeks saying, "Thank you so much." For putting this content out there, I've now gone and started my own business. And it's exactly what you said, Esther. People who've always had in the back of their minds, this idea, and they've never kind of jumped off the fence before because they've had the safety net of the job. Maybe also with redundancy, they might have been given, a little bit of money to be able to, take those first steps. We had somebody on last night from Australia, actually. She'd set up Airbnb type business for cabin crew to swap their homes when they travel, etc. So, and this lady had never started a business before. She's in her 50s, always wanted to. So, I expect there to be loads more stories, come out over the next rest of this year that people actually want to do those kinds of things. So I think you'll be very busy over at the City Library.
I hope so. And I think so. It's not just about research, but also the practical support that we can give people, sort of like practical information, but also the webinars that we have going on as well, which I hope will complement some of the webinars that you're hosting too.
Yeah, and remind us again, you've got the next one. Yeah, I saw you had 3 that were up there, Esther.
Yes, there are 3. There are 2, one on company data and one on market research, and they're on the 20th and the 18th of August. And then there was one on exporting and importing. I think that's the 2nd of September. It's early September. But there are also other webinars on things like finding your ideal customer, a range of topics really. And they're all listed on our Eventbrite site. And
I've just posted up the link again for City Library. There we go. So that'll be the last thing that people see. I think maybe last questions, folks. Tadan says, how different is your service when compared to the IT or the local chambers of commerce? Far more ranging by the sound of it.
I think that the information about overseas markets on the DIT website is very much 1 or 2 lines. It gives you an idea of which businesses might succeed in a particular country, or which might succeed in a particular country. So which sectors that country are worth investing in. But our data will give you much more in-depth information about particular countries and about the markets for particular products or services in those countries. So that's how we differ. The DIT and Chambers of Commerce will help though with the practical filling in the paperwork and that kind of information.
Okay, well, June says, I found this very useful and will sign up. Thank you. Louise says, thank you so much for all the useful information for business. Chris says, thanks, guys. Really useful session. Tadan says, this is excellent. Yeah, lots of people saying thank you and a really good turnout as well. So everybody's with us. Yeah. Well, yeah, any last questions? Post them up now whilst we're just signing off. Anything to dances, I will definitely sign up as well. There we go. Yeah, anything you'd like to close on, Esther, to point people in a certain direction, or any last lines you'd like to put out there to our audience today? Well,
obviously to encourage people to join the library, that would be wonderful. But just to encourage people to keep researching, not just when they're starting up, which they might be doing at the moment, but to remember that in order to grow your business, you will need to keep researching, to keep looking at the markets, to keep looking at companies you're trading with, who might be competitors, who might be suppliers. But you'll need to keep doing that research for markets and companies, and you'll need to keep doing that throughout the life of your business, really, to make sure that you're up to date and that you can keep expanding and growing and making profit. That's what you want to do at the end of the day, is to make a profit.
Yeah, 100%. Help people and make a profit for yourself at the same time. Lisa says, thank you, Esther. Do you have an email address we can connect with you directly after?
Yes, if you email the generic address, and then I'll pick it up from there.
There you go. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Esther. Thank you for sharing your time with us today with our audience here at the Festival of Enterprise. Anyone else, as always, I'm going to be back tomorrow. I think I'm going to be back at 12 o'clock. I am indeed with Damien Lee, who was NatWest's Entrepreneur of the Year 2020, founder of Mr. Lee's Noodles. That's going to be at 12 p.m. tomorrow. So I hope you can join me back here on this platform then. In the meantime, thank you all for watching. Thank you for your time, Esther.
Thank you.
And have a great week, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now.